Hello, I have here some tulip bulbs and I'm going to plant these today into various sized pots, which you can see to my left. But I'm going to start off with a question. What's the latest in the year you've ever planted your tulips? The reason I'm asking that is I bought these in September and I wish I'd got them into these pots in October or November, but there's been so much going on. I've forgotten to do it and I've not got round to it. So it's now the 2nd of January. We've actually just gone through a really cold spell. I wish I'd got these into the pots earlier, but given that I haven't, I'm going to do it now. What's your experience of planting them late? Do they just come through late, or do they never make it through? Let me know in the comments box below. I bought these online from a company called Thompson and Morgan. I don't get paid commission by them and I'm not having any commission off them, but I have to say the service I got at the time was excellent. Some great care and planting instructions. They come in a lovely little box that says live plants, urgent delivery, please open immediately. Of course I didn't open them immediately, so in fairness, if these tulip bulbs from Thompson and Morgan don't perform, I can't blame Thompson and Morgan, I can only blame myself, but fingers crossed, with a bit of luck they'll do okay. Now here I've got a bucket full of pea gravel, some terracotta pots which are all broken up, which I'm going to use as crocks, and I've got my pots, I've got my compost. I've measured my compost out by filling all the pots up first and then tipping it out onto this board. Now I was reading some instructions, and these instructions, some other instructions, and I think the trick is drainage with these, and really ideally I should have some gravel or some grit to this compost. Well, I haven't got any on site. I want to get the job done today, so I'm going to go with the next best thing, which is putting lots of drainage underneath. So when I was measuring that out, I only filled the pots 2/3 because the bottom third of those pots is going to be filled with crocks and this pea gravel, and that will allow the water through. Because I've got two different colours in here. Barcelona, which is kind of a pinky colour, and black satin, as the name implies, a black one, and I've been told by the boss that we've got to have some pots all black and some pots all pink. I would have liked to have mixed them up a bit myself, but anyway, you know what I mean. So let's get on with planting these. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put lots of crocks in the bottom of these pots. So essentially all I'm doing with these is covering the drainage hole, which will stop all the soil from leaking out at the bottom of each of these pots, and I'm also taking up a bit of a space at the bottom of each pot, which will stop me wasting too much compost. So that's the first step, really, just to get some terracotta into the bottom of each of these pots, cover the drainage hole, take up a bit of space. The next thing I'm going to do is put 1 inch or so of pea gravel on top. And just as a little side note, the deeper the pot, the more drainage I'm putting in the bottom, and that's really to just fill it up so I'm not being so wasteful into the bottom with the compost. So the deeper the pot, slightly more crocks. So the next thing I'm going to do is just add 1 inch or so of this pea gravel on top of the crocks at the bottom of each pot, and this is my way of improving the drainage in the bottom. I do this when I plant my olive trees in pots as well. You've got like 3 layers. You've got the hole at the bottom, then you've got your crocks, and you've got your gravel, and that acts as a kind of a filter. It stops the soil from going through, but it allows the vast majority of the water to permeate through, because the one thing with the tulips is the bulbs can rot if they're sat in water. Talking of water, I'm going to water these once when I plant them into these pots, and I'm not going to water them again. I'm just going to let rainwater keep it damp until they start to show through the surface, and then when they show through the surface, obviously they're growing and the demand for water and food will increase, and at that stage I will start watering them, but by that stage we're beyond the risk, the point at which they're going to rot down. So let's get some soil in the bottom of each of one of these pots. Now I always use a board like this when I'm dealing with compost and soil, and that's for obvious reasons. It stops the soil from getting in the gravel, but it's also easier to clean up afterwards. You've got a flat surface to sweep off. So let's get a layer of compost in the bottom of each one of these pots, which I'm now lining up around the edge of the board. So I'm now just filling these with this compost, and I'm just breaking it up, crumbling it up in between my fingers, because in the bags it can kind of form lumps, can't it, and coagulate into big lumps, and just by breaking it up, it just gives the roots of the plants an easier run through, and gives them access to the goodness that's in the compost. And I'm filling these not too deep. I need to leave a gap at the top such that I can plant the bulbs 3 or 4 times the depth of the diameter of the bulbs, which is about so deep. I'm also going to leave an inch or so at the top, so that in the springtime when they start growing, I can get some water into the top without it running off. So there we go, let's get these half filled with some compost. I'm going to arrange these a little bit better so that I can have kind of a divider down the middle, and I can have blacks on one side and pinks on the other side, and I'll have a big one at that end and a big one at that end, and then I'll go for a square one, another square one, and then we got 2 round ones. I want to be a bit cheeky with this spare one in the middle. I'm going to put a mix in and not tell anyone. See what happens. I'll get in trouble. So there we go, there's my pots. Pot, terracotta, gravel, half filled with compost. It's now time to put some of these tulips in. Let's divide them up. Black satin, Barcelona, black satin, Barcelona. Incidentally, if you want to check out another gardener who is a creative genius in my opinion when it comes to pots and tulips and all kinds of cut flowers in the garden, have a look for a guy called Arthur Parkinson. He's on Instagram actually, so have a look for him. What he can do with a dolly tub in a small space garden, and he's an author as well. He's written some books on the subject, really good. Anyway, let's get these planted. There's 16 in each bag, so that means I've got 32 blacks and 32 pinks. So now I'm going to do some math and work out how many I can put in each one. Right, as I was doing my maths, I had a visit from the boss, he who must be obeyed, and I've been told that these 2 square ones are going on either side of the front door, and they've got to have the same in each. So these 2 are going to be mixed, so they can go over there, and I've worked out how many numbers are going in each one. So I'll now start getting the bulbs into the soil. I'm just going to compact that down a little bit, not too much. I'll take these black satin. I'm just going to mix them in randomly, but I need 4 of these in each of these 2 pots. Pointy end up. 1, 2, 3. I'm not doing any pattern. I want them to come up randomly. 4. There's 4 in that one. Pointy end up. That's the pointy end, obviously. 1, 2, 3, 4. These have already started shooting. Anyway, let's go and get some of the others. So these are the Barcelona, these are the pinky coloured ones. So these are going to be mixed in randomly with the black ones. All the other pots are going to be one colour. So there's 1, 2, 3. It's looking a bit crowded in these pots, but I want that. I don't want them to be spread too thinly when they start to come up. That one there is a double one, look. It's like a little devil with 2 horns on the top. Anyway, I digress. Let's get that one in there. And let's get some soil, some compost, gently sprinkled over the top. Again, I'm burying these 4 or 5 times, 3 or 4 times the diameter of the bulb. When I get sufficient on top, I am going to gently, but very gently, compact them down, because I don't want to break any of those little stems that are starting to come up. 4 into here. 1, 2, 3, Oh. And more compost on top. This is a very, very gentle tap. I'm hardly touching it. I'm going to let the water that I put on when I give it its first and only water before spring help that to settle. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these pots. You don't need to watch me do all that, but I might even put a layer of this pea gravel on top. In fact, I think I will. I've made a decision. I did see this on one of Monty Don's posts, and apparently they're quite capable of pushing up through that. Carol Klein does this as well. She's a great one for gravel. She must keep the gravel business floating. Anyway. So hopefully in the spring I'll have some lovely tulips come up to show you. Hope you've enjoyed that and found it slightly entertaining. It's felt a little bit disorganised to me, if I'm honest with you, but that's how gardening is sometimes, isn't it? Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notifications bell if you haven't already done so. And I'll see you very soon for some more gardening adventures. Bye for now.